Zambia. Good evening, Africa, and warm welcome to the analysis program right here on KBN TV from Zambia's capital city, Saga. With me, Innocent Piri. Today, the 26th of April 2026, and allow me to unveil a team of experts in the studio. These are the people with the brains to break down all the stories that, of course, took center stage in the course of the week. And I've got next to me Mike Sichula, who is the speech analyst, as we call him. Mike Sichula, welcome, and good evening to you.
Thank you very much, IP, and good evening to our dear viewers. It's a pleasure to be here again on the analysis to analyze stories that happened in the course of last week.
Beautiful. And next to Mike Sichula, we've got the man himself and Pastor Kenneth Mambwe, or PK. PK, good evening and welcome to the analysis.
Good evening, IP, and good evening to our esteemed viewers. Thank you.
Beautiful. Of course, I know that most of you expect me to unveil Ambassador, but today Ambassador is not feeling too well. But we hope that next week you will join us back on set. But remember that in Zambia we've got a lot of stakeholders that will always come on board to keep you company. This is a guru in the media, a person who has been in the media space before some of us we actually began practicing. His name is Keris Kaunda, an international relations expert. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Innocent, for having me, and I'm honored because I haven't been around on this seat for a long time.
Yeah. Fantastic. Gentlemen, let's get into it. I know that the country and the viewers are watching today to see what we have packaged for them in terms of the big stories that are up for discussion. But I know that one of the top the story that is going to consume much of our time this evening, we'll be looking at the story which keeps on changing angles, changing shapes, unfolding different dimension altogether. The story of the late former president, Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu, and the remains being talked about. A lot is being said. The question is, what is going on? Why should we continue covering this story? Let's find out, gentlemen, if at all we can able to put the pieces together. Mike Sichula, last week we were told that the government of Zambia had taken possession of the mortal remains of former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu. But alas, as we speak now, we've been told again that the mortal remains of Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu have never been in the custody of the Zambian government. So we do not know what we can unpack together. But I think it will be important before we say that, we just add a few pieces in terms of what the stakeholders are saying, then we will dive into the discussion. So let's have some clips here, and then later on I'll engage in my guest.
The remains of the sixth president have at no point been in the physical custody of the government of Zambia. They were held by the South African Police Service throughout these few days which have passed in connection with their inquest. Secondly, the government of the Republic of Zambia has respected and will continue to respect every order issued by the courts. That is not a matter of convenience. It is a matter of principle. Thirdly, the question of how a former president of the Republic of Zambia is to be laid to rest is not closed by the latest court order. Dr. Lungu served as president of Zambia for 7 years. He was head of state, head of government, and commander-in-chief of our defense forces. The duty the Republic owes to that office is not extinguished by a single order on custody, and government will continue through the proper legal channels and with the patience this matter requires to ensure the honors due to a former head of state are properly discharged. To the Lungu family, the position of the Zambian government is what it has been throughout. The value of a former head of state was never meant to be a contest, and it need not remain one. Government's willingness to engage with the family in good faith to find an arrangement that honors the 60th president is undiminished. Our position remains unchanged. President Hakainde Hichilema has been consistent throughout. His interest in this matter is constitutional. His concern is and has always been that his predecessor is accorded the dignity the office demands.
Guest analyst. All right, let me begin with Mike Sichula. You've been following this story keenly. What is up for discussion this evening?
Well, a lot is up for discussion, considering that I think let me tackle the aspect of the Attorney General. To me, when the two instances that the Attorney General spoke to the nation, it looks like he's been left alone to handle the process alone. He gathers information from South Africa, he processes that information, then he disseminates it to the Zambians. Then I'm beginning to ask myself, it's like he's been left to do all that by himself, because I didn't expect the Attorney General to be paraded the way he has been paraded on the 22nd. He just issued a statement, which if you compare with what he issued yesterday, it's kind of like confusing, and it's not very clear in terms of what could have happened. For instance, in the first, he said on the 22nd, he said the High Court in Pretoria had formally transferred the mortal remains of Dr. Lungu to the Zambian government. The transfer happened on 22nd after the Lungu's family's inability to proceed with a case before the South African Court of Appeal. Then, on the 25th, the same Mr. Kabesha says the remains of former President Lungu have at no point been in the physical custody, that's the key word there, physical custody of the Zambian government, as the remains were held by the South African police in connection with its inquest following his death on the 5th of June 2025. Now, down there it says, Mr. Kabesha again says, the remains of Mr. Lungu were handed to the family in the evening of Thursday, 2023, April 2026. Now, you can clearly see that there are two dates there that are not adding up. 22nd, the remains of Dr. Lungu were transferred to the family after the family failed to process the appeal before the court. Then, 23rd, again, they were handed to the Lungu. So, I think the Attorney General needed to understand that there's some certain information that needed to be processed by media experts. And in the Zambian government, there are a lot of media experts that were, if they were given this task to handle it, they could have done in a more clear manner, unlike what Mr. Kabesha has stated. Because what he has stated now, it is creating a lot of confusion in terms of what could have happened. Who had the body, at what point, and so on and so forth. So to me, Mr. Kabesha seems to have been left alone to do what I can call the dirty work in the media, so that people begin to get confused instead of getting clarity. Because this sensitive matter doesn't need to have a lot of questions, a lot of confusion in terms of what has been said to the public and not what should not be said to the public. So the job done by Mr. Kabesha is not something that is pleasing, it's not something that is inspiring, it's not something that is providing clarity. It is just adding in, bringing in a lot of questions Zambians are beginning to ask. Are we being told the truth? Because we need to be told the truth. But from the look of things, it seems there's something that is being hidden somewhere, and the government doesn't want that thing to be given to Zambians. But Zambians deserve answers because they are the masters of this country.
PK, I'll come to you. Why should we continue fighting for this body? What is so? I want to use a word which is a bit. Why do we keep on pointing fingers at each other over this body? I don't want to use the word. How special is this conversation, this news?
First of all, sometimes I tend to even be reluctant to comment on this story because ideally, by now, the nation should have healed. President Lungu died on the 5th of June last year. This is April. We have, is it 2 more months to the anniversary of his death? To think that we are still discussing this story and it's still in the international news, in the local news, in the regional news, on the lips of every Zambian boy, girl, child, and the old alike, is actually a very sad development. That we should be discussing a matter that should have been closed a long time ago.
Yeah.
It shows that the people that should have made the right call, should have made the right decisions, looked away and perhaps prioritized things that might appear to be personal interest, not national interest. Because if it was national interest and anyone was interested in bringing closure to this, the same time that the family held a funeral, that they are going to repatriate the body here, and the demands were advanced, at that time, we should have reflected as a nation and say, let's honor the wishes of the dead. But when that was not to be, and the family made alternative plans to inter the body or the remains of the 60th Republican president, to go and stop them. Remember, the viewers have not forgotten, and I haven't forgotten, I don't know about if you have forgotten, that we were seated, all of us glued to TV, that there is a church service that was ongoing on that day, only to be told there is a matter that has arisen at the court. So people had to split. Others went to court, others remained in church.
Correct.
And that's how that burial procession was stopped in the eyes of the international community. Everyone was watching and following keenly. Here we are back in the news yet again over the same story. In my view, it's a failure by government. They have failed to provide proper leadership on this. Perhaps that's why the reason you are asking us to comment on what seems to be two conflicting statements from the same government, from the same mouth, which is, Attorney General Mulilo Kabesh. First of all, what does it mean, IP, when you say the South African High Court has transferred formally the body, the remains, they've transferred
into the government, the Zambian government,
to the Republic of Zambia? What does that mean? Doesn't it mean physical transfer? Was it paper that was being transferred? And what does Mr. Makawesha now come, what does he mean when he comes back and says, at no point has the body ever been in the hands of the Zambian government physically? At no point. So when he said the body had been transferred, what did he mean? And we have heard from the Lungu's lawyer, Makebi Zulu, and all the statements that have come from there, that actually, when it comes to the autopsy or postmortem, it is a named Zambian diplomat who signed to authorize, not a family member,
Mm.
but so if the government had not had access to the body, then how did this diplomat sign to authorize autopsy?
Mm.
Can Mr. Kavesha, explain all of that for him to say we have never had access to the body at any point, but a diplomat was present? Who was that diplomat representing? Isn't it the Republic of Zambia?
A diplomat will always represent the government.
Exactly. So at what point will Mr. Kavesha say the body has never been? If he's saying the body was transferred from that morgue to another morgue for autopsy because of an investigation, but why did the Zambian official come into the picture to be the one to sign? Why didn't the police themselves in South Africa who are conducting the so-called autopsy be the ones to sign for that body? So in my view, this is really been mishandled by the government, and the back and forth and trying to cover up tracks is because they've been caught out, and this is being spoken by every Zambian, and in fact even in the international community, in the international media, everyone is talking about this. So it is very regrettable, IP, that we should be here today discussing this matter when we should have had closure to it many months ago.
Correct. Comrade Kaunda,
Yes.
you've been writing about this story. You've been following this story as an international relations expert. You remember this story, as PK mentioned, beyond the story, the drama which happened in Pretoria itself on the day when the burial was supposed to take place. Here in Zambia again, I think we conducted what can I say, a funeral, procession for about a week. You remember the activities which were happening at Bevodia Lodge, all those activities. And we thought that this matter was going to be put to rest. We are still back at it. What is your take?
For me, what is interesting is this. As we speak, there is before Parliament a proposed bill regarding funerals for former heads of state and former vice presidents. Do you know what that entails?
No.
What entails is that government is admitting that there's no law regarding how you bury presidents, former presidents, and former vice presidents. There's no law. That's what they're admitting.
So they are now pushing for that law.
Yes, they're now pushing for that law. So what does then this say about the legal action that they did in the Pretoria court? Because all along the argument has been in the nation that, listen, there's no law regarding this. So the will of the family must take precedence. And yet government went to in a Pretoria court and cited the High Court, the High Court ruling by Judge Muma. Now, the High Court ruling by Judge Muma, you need to understand it very clearly from a legal point of view. It was an application seeking permission to apply for leave. Now, technically by law, what that means is that you are not saying at that stage that you are dealing with the substance of the law. No, because even the citations that have been made there's no authority, there's no law that has been cited. It's just a reference to policy or practice. Now, here is something about what you need to know about policy. Policy can be practiced because you can verbalize it, you can write some instructions, you can do protocol. However, policy only gains strength if it is anchored in law. In the absence of law, it becomes like a gentleman's agreement. But the arguments that are being made in the court of law in Pretoria, referencing that judgment, suggested like there's a precedence, so it is law. Now, government knows that, no, it is not. It is not law. That is why government has decided to go to Parliament to pass a law. So now it is being discussed.
So a precedence is not law.
No, it's not necessarily, because, especially that at that stage, because they were arguing, you see, they were arguing that it is precedence.
Yes.
But you see, it would have been precedence if the arguments were based on a substantive hearing. But if you are making an application for permission to apply for leave, what it means is that you are saying, listen, we've got an argument that we want to make, and these are the basic arguments, but we are seeking permission to proceed so that we can go and make those substantive arguments. So, in fact, what some lawyers argue is that when Judge Muma went on to make statements such as, former President Kaunda was not an ordinary person.
Correct.
And secondly, when he made statements such as you are saying that there's a letter that Dr. Kaunda wrote that he wanted to be buried next to his wife. Yeah. Where's the letter? And then Kaweche said, we don't have it ready available, but we know that it was written to Secretary of Cabinet. Yeah. Then he said, listen, if you don't have that letter, then we are just speculating. So, because we are in the realm of speculation, I cannot give you permission to proceed with this application. Now, some of the arguments that have been made by some lawyers is that the judge, did an overreach, that he went beyond what was supposed to be dealt with at that stage. So whatever was said that Kaunda is not, it wasn't an ordinary person.
Correct.
And that because you can't produce a letter, then this is in the realm of speculation. That cannot be used as precedence, because we are not dealing with substantive issues.
Right.
But that's how it was presented in the Pretoria court, like there was a precedence. So, but because the Zambian government realizes that it was not necessarily law that was being made in a court of law, they've decided to present before Parliament National Assembly Bill number, I think number 5 is for benefits, and I think NAB 6 is dealing with funerals. Now, that is an admission on the part of government that there's no law. So if there's no law to this effect, then why don't you just sit back and allow the wishes of the family, to proceed? Whether those things were written or not, you need to regard the word of the significant member of the family. In this case, his wife. Right. Then if you don't want to listen to his wife, you can listen to his daughter. Right. If you don't want to listen to the daughter, he's got sons. You don't want to listen to sons, he's got sisters. All these are authorities that you can rely upon to indicate what the wishes of ECO were. So there are all these contradictions. Now, I think for Zambians at this point in time, they should be asking government, why have you decided to introduce a law regarding the funerals of former presidents and former vice presidents? Isn't that an admission on your part that there's no law? And if there's no law, then why don't you just withdraw this matter and allow the family to do what they want?
Wow. Let's move on, gentlemen. We just look at the reactions which came from the Lungu family spokesperson in Honorable Makebi Zulu, because I think you remember we are informed as a country that the government conducted a postmortem to the mortal remains of former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, and others are alleging that actually what the government did was to smuggle the body or the mortal remains, was to there are so many terminologies being used, abduction and everything like that. But how true is that? Let's get the reactions coming from Makebi Zulu.
Postmortem was conducted. It began at 8:30 today and only ended at about 14 hours. That is despite them being aware that the court had issued that order demanding for an immediate return of the body to Two Mountains or any other mortuary that the family had decided. So we've been here all this while, and it's only just about now, after insistence and persistence, that we will be getting the body and taking it to a designated mortuary. There was no consent from the family. There was no family member who identified the body. There was no family member who was present during the postmortem. There was no family member who was aware as to where exactly the body was. So all this that has been done without the involvement of the family at any stage, from the point of picking up the body to the point of repatriation of the body from from Two Mountains to this place called Forensic Pathology Center. Like I said, a postmortem has been conducted, meaning that the body has been dissected, been opened, and they've done whatever they had to do with the body. And yes, we will be picking it up in that state. The order was for the return of the body, certainly in the state that it was in. Well, yes, I did indicate that I was getting a further update. I'm glad to inform you that the Supreme Court has just given us a stay. The government of Zambia and the government of South Africa have been ordered to take back the body to Two Mountains. And further, there has been an order for them to show cause as to why they should not be cited for contempt. We will be making available that court order to you, and so that the Zambians may know. That is where we are right now. And the Supreme Court has just finished their hearing and granted the order.
Okay, thank you very much. There you have it.
All right. I'll get back to you, gentlemen, with 1 minute each, quickly, if you can. The reactions of Makebi Zulu, we're being told that the government actually conducted a postmortem. PK, I know you mentioned that, but I'll still come back to you. Quickly, comrade.
I think
how should a postmortem be conducted? Maybe let's look at that angle.
Okay, there are many ways that you can do it, but in this instance, the next of kin is very important. You cannot overrule the next of kin, whether you want to do an inquest or whatever you want to do. And I'll speak to it from the traditional point of view, and also even when they're just doing some postmortems that require, let me just say, the next of kin is very important whenever you're going to do a postmortem. Then, based on what Makebi Zulu spoke about a family member who he did not mention, having made a request that this should be a postmortem be done to late President Edgar Lungu. Now, I want to, when I heard that, I thought, could it be now that finally the Zambian government has managed to find an insider within the Lungu family who they can use to say, we suspect there was a foul play and this must be subjected to a postmortem. That's how that question I needed it to be answered by Makebi Zulu, because that family member is not being availed to the nation, because from where we have come from, we have clearly seen that the Lungu family has been united, such that they have been speaking one language. Now, how come now there seems to be a division where someone went behind the back of even the spokesperson, Mr. Makebi Zulu, to claim that they needed to, a postmortem needed to be done. So, Mr. Makebi Zulu needs to also clarify that position. Could it be now within the Lungu family there is division? People are now tired, they want to get this thing all over again. Because the only person that I remember made an allegation was Mr. Lafeo Nakachinda. But from where I stand, Mr. Lafeo Nakachinda is not a family member of the Lungu family. So how did the government of Zambia identify this family member to lodge a complaint? Now, even if this person did launch a complaint, we don't know that this person, we don't know whether this person is a next of kin or not. So, regardless of whether this family member is aggrieved, he or she has decided to break away from the sake of the Lungu family to go and lodge a complaint, the next of kin needed to be involved. But when you look at how Mr. Makebi Zulu is addressing the nation, and also when you compare it with the statement that was issued by Mr. Kawesha, from yesterday's statement, Mr. Kawesha is clearly more or less like running away to say it's not us who pushed for the post-mortem. It is the South African government that from the very start wanted to have an inquest, and they have had the possession of the body all along from the time the judgment was done from the time President Lungu died in June,
Right.
and also
I want you
from
to
the
conclude,
and also
so
from
we
the
move on.
time that the judgment was passed. So there are all those questions that needed to be answered, and now from me, basically now it's like the Attorney General is running away from the fact that from the claims or allegation that they are pushed for a postmortem without the presence of a family member.
All right, interesting. PK, you hold on a bit. Comrade Kaunda, you hold on a bit. I want us to also just have a few of how this story is trending elsewhere. We look at how the international media is actually executing this story and the reactions which are being added to this matter. Wow, interesting enough, this gentleman who has come out so ballistic. We hear that he was a lecturer to President Hakainde Hichilema way back, and he has actually, according to him, he has written a letter to him telling President Hakainde Hichilema to hands off the body or the mortal remains of Edgar Chagwa Lungu. Let's just listen to this video. It's quite a bit long, but I think worthy to watch, all of us, and then we'll be back shortly.
And thank you for joining us. Onward now, I am Olamide Adeyemi. We begin here in Africa, where Zambia's Attorney General says the government has custody of Lungu's remains, which have been removed from a funeral home in Pretoria. This despite his family's claims that a separate urgent court order ruled that Lungu's body will be returned to the facility. The Zambian government says it has now taken custody of the former president Edgar Lungu's body for a state funeral. The government had been in a long-standing dispute with his family over where he should be buried after he died at a clinic in South Africa last June while receiving treatment at an undisclosed location for an undisclosed illness. His family were open to give him a private burial ceremony in Johannesburg that will exclude the presence of his successor and political rival, the incumbent president of Zambia, Hakainde Hichilema. They maintain that one of Edgar's Lungu's last wishes was that the current president should neither be anywhere near his body nor preside over his funeral. Last year, a South African High Court sided with the Zambian government, ordering the repatriation of Lungu's remains for a state funeral. Edgar Lungu led Zambia from 2015 until 2021 when he lost the elections by a huge margin to Hichilema. For a closer look at the rift over the burial of Lungu and the Zambian leadership, international relations expert and founder of Pan-African Forum Limited, Dr. David Matsanga, joins me from the United Kingdom. Doctor, thank you for joining us on the board now. Well, this is the latest twist that we're seeing in a 10-month saga over what should happen to the former president's body, following a long-standing feud between both sides. But aside the court's decision, what's your own reaction?
This is a very sad moment for Africa. It is un-African for us to have this as a headline. When somebody has died in Africa, we don't go to this level. We have exposed our ignorance of the African values, African customs. I am one of the few people who has written to my younger man. He's younger than me because he was part of my group that used to come to listen to my lectures in London when he was in Birmingham University, President Hichilema. I have written to him this morning, telling him, please, don't do this. If there is a family, you are not next of kin. If there is a problem of push and pull, just avoid this public court battles in and out, in and out. I think the family has a say. If the will says he doesn't want to be buried wherever it is, I have asked President Hichilema to just avoid, leave it, surrender it, let the burial take place, and that's it.
Beyond, the court rulings, this is a really difficult time for the family. Now the government seems that they do not want to, accept this court ruling. But how should one interpret the Zambian government's insistence on a state's funeral, considering, I mean, it was their president at some point, but to you, does it reflect genuine national protocol, or this is another political calculation?
It's a political calculation because he knows he's going to lose the job. There's an election just coming in a few months in Zambia, you know that. And he wants to use the body of the man he hated so much to have a political capital. So I don't think the family is willing to go that route. This man had a bad relationship with the late. They had battles. He had removed the cars. He had removed the security. He has told him to return everything that was worth. Then why do you want him when he's dead? I think on this one, I stand with the family. The family has a right to take their person. They are the next of kin. The president is not the next of kin. Mr. Hekrema is not the next of kin to Mr. Lungu. Why is it so personal? He hated him when he was alive. He never gave him medicine. He never allowed him to go out for even treatment. You can imagine. So why do you want him now? He's dead. Above all, this is a shame, a big shame for Africa. And in fact, it's a big, big shame for us Africans to pretend to be doing things like the things on the Lion and the Jewel or Lakunule. You know, there's no need of fighting over a dead body. You are head of state. If the family says he doesn't want to see you, leave him. Why do you want to use his body as a politics when you never liked him at all?
I mean, this is a big issue considering the history, such as the President Ikilema's 2017 arrest and detention on treason charges under Lungu's administration. And from what you have said, it seems that this is sort of, payback period. But this raises concerns as to the integrity of the current leadership in Zambia at the moment. And now that Lungu actually dropped a statement that it should not be anywhere close to his body, how much of this dispute is now shaped by grievance?
I mean, another court also has issued an order for the body to be returned to where they found it, because they have nowhere to fly the body. Where are they going to take the body? The body is now under the custody of the government of the Republic of South Africa. And every airport, every plane, every by road, by sea, by what, you can't take out the body until the court orders are served properly, executed. So there is nothing. It is a waste of time. This gentleman died in South Africa. He was not dying in a proper way as a head of state. He died as a person who had been actually victimized. Let him be buried by his family. The family is anguished. There is no peace between the family of Lungu and the family of Kirema. Leave the man to be buried. As an African elder, I don't think this is something that we should go on haggling. What do you think these people, the Western countries, the Europeans look at us? What do we think that we know something, but we don't know? What are they saying now? Lots of things about how shallow we are, fighting over a dead body. Another thing is that reconciliation in Africa seems not to be there. People don't reconcile. There are so many places where I've been in the middle of such a crisis, like in Angola, Santos. I had to pick a phone to call the president of Angola to say, hello, what's going on? Allow a man to be buried. I don't see any reason.
Originally, there are processes, in handling the funeral of former leaders, heads of state, and also, presidents. Perhaps that's what the Zambian government is trying to ensure in this case, aside the political rift on ground. But let's talk about what presidents this really sets for how African governments now handle, the burial of their former leaders as against their family wishes. How can this be balanced between the state interest, historical record, and also the family's wishes for privacy and dignity in any case?
It teaches the culture of bad politics we have on the continent of Africa. Chiluba never wanted Mr. Kaunda to be buried in Zambia. He stripped Kaunda off. These Zambians have got very bad manners. They stripped Kaunda off citizenship, jailed him. He never wanted him to be buried. Fortunately or unfortunately for God, God called Mr. Chiluba before Mr. Kaunda. We struggled in Africa to make sure that Mr. Kaunda is released from jail. This man, again, also with his friend, it teaches us there is something wrong with our democracy, our politics, our governance. We must, actually, Africa needs to go back, my sister, to a drawing board. Is this type of one man, one vote democracy, elections, this is the one that brings sharp differences amongst the people. Is it working for us? Are we all mature enough in Africa today to say, okay, my friend, you have won, go home, I will wait for 5 years? No. Across Africa, my sister, you have seen how many people are fighting, and opposition doesn't want to see the president. The president doesn't want to see the opposition. It is almost everywhere. In your own place, I think it is only your own place where we don't see opposition leaders being held into court or detained.
And now that, apologies for cutting in, and now that this has now become, you know, a public show of strength, court matters, court, you know, judgment here and there, does the involvement of South African courts complicate or clarify sovereignty issues in cases where, you know, political figures die abroad?
It does, and South Africa must take up the lead. South Africa must stand up. South Africa has got values, customs. If they will, what does the will of the president say? That's it. In legal terms, you can say you want to bury somebody somewhere, but the man says, I don't want to be buried back in Nigeria. What will you force people? No. Let's take the will of the man and the family. The family is not just cooking up some material to say, let's bury this man in South Africa. The family is following what the man told them. And the man is not here to say it, but he left a will saying that I don't want ever to Mr. HH, we call him HH, president, to come near my funeral, to do any funeral, you know, ceremonies by the government of Zambia. Therefore, why can't we as grown-up Africans, I have told Mr. HH, the student from Birmingham University, to pull off, leave the body to be buried, or alternatively, criminate the man and throw them in River Zambezi.
Dr. Basanga, I think there is also, you know, the risk that this issue could, you know, deepen political polarization in Zambia ahead of, you know, future elections. Now that, you know, the Zambian government is fighting specifically for this, despite the rift on ground. But we wait out to see what, you know, comes out of this decision by the court on this case. That's a fine place to leave it for now. Thank you for talking to us on World Now. International relations expert and founder, Pan-African Forum Limited, Dr. David Masanga. Thank you for joining us on World Now.
Thank you very much for giving me time. And indeed, he is going to have a rough time if he doesn't bury Mr. Lungu back in Zambia. He will lose an election. Thank you.
All right. So we'll begin from there. PK. A video with a lot of details there.
You know, when I watched that video, what came to mind is someone, an African, who understands the value of respecting the dead and how we have lived from time immemorial, has spoken. I actually expected the church to speak like that. I expected our own traditional leaders to speak like that.
Why is the church, by the way?
The church is quiet. The traditional leaders are quiet. And I'm wondering that it has to take someone who is not Zambian to speak on our behalf. That what, in fact, he said, Zambians, you've got bad manners.
Correct.
He actually even made an allegation.
He was using some strong words.
He was using very strong words. He says, he says, you know, people are trying to use the body of someone they never liked for political mileage. And in Zambia, no one is speaking up and facing the government in their face and say, can you do the right thing? And I'm happy that you have allowed that 12 minutes to play.
Correct.
So that everyone can have context. That was a very detailed and very thought-provoking interview. And I'm hoping that someone really will learn a few lessons from there. That that's not who we are as Zambians. That's not who we are as Africans. And when someone as significant as a former head of state has passed on, you do not do what has happened. From what we heard earlier from the spokesperson, Council Makebi Zulu, as to how they retrieved the body. I mean, first of all, let's establish, IP, that this matter was contested. It was before the courts of law. The government argued that the family failed to make substantive arguments
On time.
And yet, according to the Lungu family and lawyers, they had made their submissions. It is government that had not responded, and this matter was due on a date sometime in May. So there was no truth to the fact that there was a lapse in time and argument and in terms of submission of the facts. So we understand that there was police involved and there was government officials involved. No one from the family. Why would that be the case? And what were we fed by Mr. Kavesha in his first statement? He said the government of the Republic of Zambia has executed the August 2025 judgment that empowered the Republic of Zambia to repatriate the remains. My question to Mr. Kavesha is, if that was the reason the body was gotten, how come the body is not here? How come you have not repatriated? How come you have found it convenient now to say it was the South African police? And if you said you had executed the August 2025 High Court judgment, as far as I remember, in that judgment, there was no authority for an autopsy. That judgment was on repatriation. So you give the nation a statement that you have executed the judgment. The next thing we find is an autopsy. Where did you rely? And how did you transfer from you having received the body formally as you communicated? Where did you lose track and suddenly find the body in the hands of the police whom we are accusing that they are conducting an autopsy? And yet you relied on the judgment of August 2025. So all these things are not adding up at all, IP. And so for me to listen to that interview of the doctor in Birmingham, I felt very saddened as a Zambian. Actually, I feel very bad that I can call myself a Zambian today, because these events have painted a bad picture of us as a nation. We have been known to be a peaceful nation. We've been known to be a nation that is grounded in morality, integrity, and uprightness. We fought for the freedom of this region. Most African countries were liberated because of the efforts of Zambia. For us to downgrade ourselves and come to a place where everyone now looks at us as a laughing stock, it is a very sad situation. But I would like to thank God for a few good men like that doctor from Birmingham who spoke on behalf of the many voiceless. But I wonder what's happened to the church in Zambia. I wonder what's happened to the traditional leaders. Are you so scared of President Hakainde Hichilema that you can't tell him that, Mr. President, you're not taking the country in the right direction? Why can't you just speak? He is our president, for God's sake. Why are we scared of him, man? I'm wondering why. Because people are now talking about Mr. Kavesha. Mr. Kavesha cannot make a final determination of how this thing should go. It has to take the president to say, tell the nation, me, I am not interested in this anymore. It is not Mr. Kabesha. This call is for the president. So the church, why are you scared of President Hakainde Hichilema? He doesn't bite. He's a human being like you. He's just a privileged man because we gave him the authority. But it doesn't make him feel insulated from a collective wisdom and reasoning. So, I don't know where we're going.
Wow. Let's hear from Comrade Kellys. When you listen to PK, when you listen to Comrade Mike Sichula, and also the lamentations of people on the street, and also the video from playing there, the biggest question people are asking, where is the church? Big names like, for example, a man, a renowned pastor, clergyman in Imakando. I'm just citing an example. There are so many out there. But when you listen to those lamentations, what do you think should be done going forward?
First, in the multiplicity of voices, especially a lot of voices, like the ones that have been made about this issue at home and abroad, lies wisdom, and a safer route for any decision maker to take. The multiple voices that we are now hearing beyond the borders of this country are essentially saying the Zambian government is on a wrong path as far as this case is concerned. When Kennedy was talking about our role in the liberation struggle, here is what was going through my head. When I was working for VOA covering stories across the African continent, I remember a couple of times I arrived at the airport, Mtala Muhammad International Airport, present my passport. The moment the immigration officer sees that it's a Zambian passport, he or she will say very familiar things. Hey, how is the old man, Kenneth Kaunda?
I see.
The next question will be, how is Kalu Shawalia?
I see.
You Zambians are very good people. Now you get to hear this in a lot of places across the African continent. Even where I had visa problems, I was quickly processed. All because everybody talked about Kenneth Kaunda, talked about Kalushawal. Even when I was serving in foreign service, particularly when we went to former East European countries, if Ambassador Mkwite was here, he was going to attest to this. Taxi drivers, the moment you identify yourself as a Zambian, will remember Kenneth Kaunda. They will remember some of the Zambian players that have played. That is a reputation that we have. But to hear people today saying, but you Zambians, you've resolved the bigger problems for the world before. How do you fail to resolve a problem like this? You guys are rich in values, moral values. And you're probably the only country in the world that is declared a Christian nation. And we know what Christian values are like. There's no way a Christian will put up an argument for a year. Because you see, you know what Christianity teaches you? Christianity teaches you that if you have a dispute with a brother, make sure that the sun doesn't set. You need to resolve that problem.
And today is Sunday as we speak.
Today,
and we can't forgive each other.
And we can't forgive each other. We can't resolve that problem.
We are from church.
Yeah, you know. My God. So I'm, every time I think about this, you know what I say to myself?
No.
That we are embarrassing God. The devil is very happy because what the devil simply says before God is that, listen, this country you call your own, that declared, that surrendered itself into your hands, doesn't even understand what you say in the very book that is supposed to be the basis of their values. That book which is the basis of their values say, if you have any dispute, make sure that the sun doesn't set. But how many suns have risen and set in the past 11 months or 10 months or 9 months we've been arguing there? We've been arguing about this. What we are doing is to make a mockery of Zambia as a Christian nation. We are also making a mockery of, the message that Christ demonstrated when he died on the cross. When he died on the cross, Christ reminded us shortly before his death what the entire plan of salvation was all about. It was about forgiveness and reconciliation. That's why he said, even in the heat of the moment when the cruelty was at full display, he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Now, if we really understand that, you think we would have gone on arguing like this? And there are times when people say that, maybe I'm too hard when I write on my Facebook page about this matter on President Hakainde Hichilema. The reason why I sound like that is because President Hakainde Hichilema is not just a Christian, but he's a church elder. And an elder in the Adventist church must understand the central theme of salvation on the cross. It's about ensuring that if I've got anything wrong with a brother, I resolve it. We do have Holy Communion on a quarterly basis in the Adventist church. Do you know what the message always is to congregants?
No.
If you are coming to the Holy Communion and you have a dispute with a brother or a sister, please don't take the body of Christ like that. You need to make sure that first of all you resolve those disputes. You know, I would have loved the elder president to demonstrate actually that those Christian principles and values that you see do work as public policy. If there's one person who never even declared himself as a Christian that demonstrated that those Christian values of forgiveness and reconciliation can be public policy, was Nelson Mandela. And those values are capable of holding a country together. Do you know that if Nelson Mandela never lived practically those values of forgiveness and reconciliation, South Africa would have been on each other's. I think there would have been so much vindictiveness. There would have been so much bloodshed, because then South African blacks would have gone after those whites that had done all those things to them. But he demonstrated that those Christian values can be incorporated into public policy, and it works. And I wish it would have worked in this case. But the very fact that this government that presides over a country that is the Christian nation has not been able to demonstrate and live that, especially around the disputes over this issue, they have crucified Christ anew. And they've made a mockery of the declaration of Zambia as a Christian nation, and they are making the devil very happy. And I can imagine the devil dancing all over in front of Christ and say, look at the people that you died for. Look at the people that declared, they surrendered the country in your hands on the global scale. Now the entire world is saying, but you're supposed to be an epitome of values and morality. But what has happened to you? Simple matter of allowing someone their wishes. The idea of respecting the wishes of the dead is global. Why is it global? It is because it's humanity. Whether you are Chinese, whether you are Sutu, whether you're Nigerian, whether you're an American, if there's one wish the entire world and the most powerful nations in the world you respect, is the wish of the dead. What did the dead say? Right. He said he wanted to be buried this way, or he wanted to be taken back home. When I was serving in diplomatic service, sometimes the wishes that were honored were of someone that didn't even have the means to be taken back home. I went to what do you call these hospitals of the hospice? I went to the hospice. I was called because that individual, although he was Ghanaian, used to work at the Zambian embassy. So they called the embassy and other members of the family to come and say goodbye, because they said he's got just a few moments to live. He's dying. So when we arrived there, there's something that really touched me to this day. At the foot of his bed was a piece of paper written, "I want to go home." That was his last wish. So then I asked his former wife, how is he going home? Did he leave any money behind? Because taking a dead body at that time was costing around 8,000 euro. How is that going to happen? With tears rolling down her cheeks, you know what she said? Even if we are no longer husband and wife, his wishes are powerful enough to compel me to do something about it. And she used her own money and paid for the air ticket 8,000 euros to take that body back to back to Ghana. The wishes of the dead must be respected as much as possible, unless you are saying that the wishes are so unreasonable they cannot be implemented by a human being. The wishes that have been told to the nation of ECL, they are very, very, very implementable.
All right, I'll still come back to you. Let's just get more reactions coming from other stakeholders now. We'll pick on the voices of some political figures in Zambia. And the first, message we're going to air is that coming from a CF leader, President Harry Kalaba, and of course that will be followed by another leader. Of course, we'll look at Brian Mundubile. What is Brian Mundubile saying? And of course, one KBF is also speaking something to this issue. And then later on, we shall dive into the discussion. So let's take a bit of some time and watch this.
Excellency, thank you very much. Actually, I am taken aback. I am short of words. Never in my lifetime did I ever imagine that such a time like this would ever occur in our times as a country. Politically, Zambia has been very tolerant of one another's views. Internationally, Zambia has been an example of how humanity ought to live. We have sacrificed all these two important ingredients on the altar of political expedience. It's such a sad development. It has brought shame to our country. It has also brought shame to the international community because they looked up to us. And we are not talking about an ordinary person here. We are talking about a person who saved the country for 7 years, to be transported from one morgue to another morgue in such an indecent manner. Really, it attracts shame on our country.
Where do we move from?
State of affairs.
Where do we... Before I ask you that question, you were in government, a senior minister. First, how are these issues handled? Two, how should this issue have been handled from a government's point of view, which you served for many years?
First of all, I will tell you, not even before I even talk about the government point of view, I'll talk about from a humanity point of view.
Mm-hmm.
From a humanity point of view, the family should have been in charge of the process up to the very end. From a government point of view, the government must have consulted and taken heed of the family's consideration or family's concerns before doing anything. It is absurd, totally absurd, to go and pick up a body, somebody's child, somebody's husband, somebody's father. You go and pick them up as if they've committed an offense without the family being aware. I think it is morally wrong, it is culturally wrong, and it is it's just not on for a country like ours.
As a former Minister of Foreign Affairs, what does this do, first, to our relationship with South Africa and how we are now being seen internationally?
As you and I are speaking, the South African officials have been cited for contempt from the documents that I'm reading. Already South Africa has been sacked in an issue that they should not even have ordinarily been sacked in. That is sad. They are looking at us as a country that does not have leadership. Clearly, they are looking at us with suspicious eyes. They now are clear that there's something wrong with Zambia. Something is not upright with our country because sacrology has been put on trial.
We speak not just as political actors, but as Zambians who understand the meaning of dignity, culture, faith, and respect for the dead. We find it extremely strange and troubling that a postmortem was conducted on the body of the late President Dr. Edgar Chagwa Lungu in total exclusion of his immediate family or his lawyers. Distinguished members of the press, where is the morality in ripping and cutting the body of the former president in such a secret and suspicious manner? What was the motive, and to whose benefit? Does this action by the state amount to the popular dignified burial? What was done to the mortal remains of President Lungu is ungodly and unacceptable. It's simply evil. We are told that a postmortem was conducted under the pretext of the so-called criminal investigations. But we ask, what kind of process is this that excludes the family? What kind of investigation operates in secrecy when it concerns something as sacred as the body of the deceased? Let us be clear. If this process was lawful, if it were clean, if it were above board, the family would have been present. The family would have been informed, and the family would have been part of it. The fact that they were not leads to one unavoidable conclusion. Something is seriously wrong, and when something is wrong at this level, it ceases to be administrative. It becomes national. It becomes a national moral question. Fellow countrymen and women, how can what has been reported in the press, almost amounting to the mutilation of President Lungu's body, be justified as acceptable or consistent with non-postmortem practices? We therefore demand that President Hakainde Hichilema immediately addresses the nation and explain in clear terms to the Zambian people why he has allowed the desecration of his late brother's body in this manner. In light of what has happened, the UPND government must also dismiss with clarity the strong and widespread concerns that this entire matter is linked to spiritual or ritual practices. Why are the circumstances of the postmortem so strange and peculiar? Distinguished colleagues, Zambia is not just any country. Zambia is a Christian nation. We believe in the dignity of life. We believe in the sanctity of death. We believe that even in death, a human being, especially our late president, deserves to be treated with reverence. What we have witnessed raises deeply troubling questions about the values and intentions of those who allowed this abomination to happen. Distinguished colleagues, allow me at this moment to turn to the church. The church cannot be silent. Not now. Not on this matter. Especially that the late president was a man of faith who openly believed in Jesus Christ. To remain quiet in the face of this is to abandon that very foundation he tried to help build for the nation. We also turn to our traditional leaders, who are the custodians of our customs and our heritage. You will all agree with me, fellow citizens, that our known traditions as Zambians do not permit what has happened in South Africa. And certainly our culture does not accept this. What has happened is an abomination, both in the eyes of our Christian faith and in the eyes of our African values. We therefore call upon you all chiefs.
My fellow Zambians, Zambia Must Prosper wants to put it on record that we are totally appalled by the behavior and conduct of the Zambian government in South Africa in relation to the remains of our late president, Edgar Chagwa Lungu. Let me begin by thanking my young brother, Makebi Zulu, for the works that he's doing in South Africa thus far, and the reactions, the actions, and indeed the help that he has rendered to the nation by keeping it informed of the ongoings. I also want to send a message of encouragement to the former First Lady, Mayowa Esther Lungu, the sister to the late President, Betha, and the entire family, the Lungu family. What has happened in the last 24, 48 hours is un-Zambian. It is totally unwelcome. It is unchristian. It's uncultural. And this is not who we are. Obu tuitatiye bupuba. Ekuiseva nyuku. As a nation, we have brought shame upon ourselves for no reason other than the satisfaction of this very uncaring UPND government. Those of you who are not aware, the judgment of August last year, 2025, in South Africa, had indicated certain conditions on how the late ECL's body was going to be touched, moved, and buried. For the sake of those that may not know, the judgment was explicit. As a precondition, the judgment insisted that before the body of the late president could be touched, moved, or buried, the ADC Vachanda to the late President Lungu was to be present at all times. Second, that the body was to be moved by the Sheriff of the Republic of South Africa. When given to either party, the Sheriff of the Republic of South Africa was to take charge. What has happened in the last 2 days is that none of these conditions were fulfilled.
All right, so we are back on it in case you've just joined us. This is the analysis program, and this is basically our biggest story of the show. So we try by all means to take a lot of time and, unfold all the angles. Gentlemen, are we being, or is the country being too hard when we all speak seemingly in favor of the Lungu family, the bereaved family, the widow, and all the affected? Where are we putting the state? The government will tell you that yes, and as much as the country or stakeholders are not happy, but look, we also have to play our role to ensure that the public interest is also respected. Mike Sichula, are we being too hard or being too selfish or biased towards the Lungu family?
Okay, the problem that has arisen is that we have taken this matter of the death and the burial of Mr. Lungu to be like a contest, where if something seemingly goes against you, you think you have lost. If a court judgment has said no, don't take the body of Dr. Lungu to Zambia, you think you have won. So the nation is divided. Even just the comments on social media, like Mr. Kaunda is saying there, you can clearly see that there's division in this country. Yeah. Even on a matter that is straightforward. I think this morning we saw, it's not that I'm speaking against the media where I come from, we saw a post where news diggers made a mistake. Right. So to correct that mistake, the venom that was coming towards...
What was the mistake about?
Where there was a typo. They indicated that State House spoke to the Lungu family 11 months ago.
Right.
Now you ask yourself, how come 11 months ago? Because Dr. Lungu has not even made 10 months after he died. So you want to make a correction to say, no, I think there's a mistake here.
Yes.
But the reactions that are coming towards you, you can clearly see that people are just, they don't care what they say, they don't care what they will say to you and what that means to the Lungu family themselves. So, all in all, IP and our dear viewers out there, there's a lot of division in this country. And it is not that the government, people are against the government, especially if you speak to say, can we allow the wishes of the Dr. Lungu to be buried as the family wished? It is not that we are being against the Zambian government. It is only that the wishes of the dead person needs to be respected as per family. Now, I want to give our viewers something that happened when Dr. Lungu was in charge of government. The traffic offense that we said, no, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema violated the traffic offense when his motorcade went against the presidential motorcade. What I've concluded from my point of view, Dr. Lungu, may his soul rest in peace, he was truly a humble person. Why am I saying this? You saw the number of foreign dignitaries that came into Zambia to speak for the release of Mr. Hichilema. If Mr. Lungu did not want Mr. Hichilema to be pardoned, Mr. Hichilema by now, as we speak, he was still going to be in prison. Why? Because Mr. Lungu looked at the pleas that were coming from the I think Obasanjo was here, there was Patricia Scotland, they were all here, they spoke to Mr. Lungu, and even the local churches in Zambia, they spoke to Mr. Lungu to say, leave your friend, this is just politics. And Mr. Lungu listened to those pleas, and what did he do? Mr. Hakainde Hichilema was pardoned. Now, for the last 10 months, Zambians have called on Mr. Hakainde Hichilema to say, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, maybe let go. It's not that when you let go, you have lost. No, you have not lost, but you are the bigger picture. You are like the overall boss. Whatever you say is going to go. But Mr. Hakainde Hichilema is not as humble as Dr. Lungu was. This is why we are here at this point in time. And the bad part is that this issue has divided the nation from every bit, whatever. You cannot say something that is reasonably correct, that you expect people are going to listen to you. They are going to come after you. They are going to insult you. They are going to do all manner of things. Then the bad part of it all is that if state institutions now are paying a blind eye to people that are insulting the Lungu family, to people that are insulting other people. Personally, on my page, I've been threatened. I've been threatened by people. You can clearly see that these are UPND cadres. Why are they threatening me? Because I'm speaking a voice that they do not want to see or hear, that someone is speaking like maybe they are supporting the Lungu family. But it's not about the Lungu family. If Dr. Hichilema today decided to step away, everything will remain intact. He will remain the president of Zambia. He will remain the president of Zambia, and nobody is going to take away anything from him. The issue here is that we are dealing with a matter that has divided the nation, and the matter that has embarrassed the Zambian government to the outside world. So if Dr. Hichilema could be as Dr. Lungu was, to just, these voices are too many, let me let go. He let go, and Mr. Hichilema was released, and everything went quiet.
Right. PK, your quick take as we wind up, when you listen to all the voices and the concerns coming from the political figures in Zambia?
There is a common theme. Everyone is saying the government must let go.
Correct.
That the government must be empathetic. They must think about the widow. Clearly, honestly, someone was nursing a husband. The husband eventually dies. And then you lock them in court. She's never taken away. You know, when you are mourning, you wear a certain kind of attire, black. In certain cultures, you actually even stop bathing. Until you bury, until you have what they call Isambo Liamfo. We know these things. The people in government know these things. They are part of our Zambian culture. So the lack of empathy over power is why people seem to be hard on the government, to say what has happened to the UPND government? Where is Ubuntu? Where is the traditional culture that has defined us as a people? Why is it that in the eyes of the UPND government, they can do whatever it takes for as long as it satisfies their desires, and doesn't matter who is hurt in the process? That is why all those people who are speaking, they are speaking like that. It's to speak to the consciousness of those who are making decisions, to say this is not who we are. Please remember, IP and dear viewers, that we have had state funerals in this country, and it's not all state funerals that have been attended by the head of state. As a matter of fact, a state funeral is conferred on someone based on their own achievements. You are a minister, you are a former vice president, you are a former president, you have already achieved this. It's not because the IP is president today. If he doesn't attend, then my funeral will not be called state funeral. No. I earned my status to be accorded a state funeral. Whether the sitting president is present or not is immaterial. And that is the argument that the family have advanced, to say the only wish is anyone else can attend, except there was bad blood between the two, and the wish was the man who he quote unquote who persecuted him, who stripped him of his presidential benefits and all of that, should not attend the funeral. The vice president Narumango could have attended on behalf of the government. The same Mr. Kabesha, who is now talking, could have attended on behalf of the government. Mr. Patrick Kangwa, who they actually had designated as the only official spokesperson, could have attended. And I'm actually wondering why Mr. Patrick Kangwa suddenly, who was given that role as the only spokesperson, has never said a word. It is suddenly Mr. Kabesha now, who knows everything, he has taken over the spokesperson over this matter. And
so procedurally, it was supposed to be feeding into Mr. Kangwa to speak.
That's what they told us. There was a press statement that was issued to say there is a directive on this matter. The only official spokesperson will be Mr. Patrick Kangwa. When this matter came up, that night, that fateful night, when we heard that the body had gone missing, my team woke me up and said, can you get us in touch with Mr. Kangwa's secretary to the cabinet? I picked up the call in the middle of the night. I called Mr. Kangwa. Mr. Kangwa said to me, that is new to me, I'm hearing it for the first time from you. But the following day, Mr. Kabesha issued a statement to say, we have executed. How do you execute? The secretary to the cabinet is unaware, and is actually the spokesperson for the government on this matter, is unaware. So, IP, when you look at all of these things, that's why President Hari Kalaba said what he said, President Mundugire said what he said, President KBF said what he said, because all of these things are not adding up. And the government to think that they are immune to this, that the funeral will only be a state funeral if Mr. Hichilema attends, I think they are being insincere. And my last submission on this matter is, what does it say about this government when you tell a nation that we have executed a court judgment, within the same jurisdiction a superior court says take back the body? What does it say? How do you feel that you can go into a country of laws if you are not respecting your own laws here? Don't go and disrespect other people's laws. That's why the body is not here, because South Africa is a country of laws. There is no way you can go into someone's bedroom and say, I've taken over. You're no longer the wife. I am the wife. No, it doesn't work like that.
Oh no.
So this really is very, very embarrassing, not just on the government, it's embarrassing on us as a people.
Correct. Comrade Kaunda, I want to bring a different angle to you. We've been, reading a story which has been written by the news diggers, and now we are being informed that the government of Zambia and the President Hakainde Hichilema in particular is now willing to let go the burial. He says it will mean the burial, giving ECAO a dignified burial, procession in my absentia. Let it happen. And information has it that this communication was done about 10 months ago or less than 8 months ago. How true from
precise
where
says 10 months.
Precise said
10 months.
10 months. Yeah. So meaning the Lungu family maybe has been a problem if this was really communicated to them.
No. Listen, there's no way the nation could have been demanding this statement and that it was there already. Makebi Zulu would have said it a long time ago. Why would to what ends? Why would he have kept that information to himself? Because that was very important, and actually that is the last piece to the puzzle that what we've been waiting for. No. The communication over this has not been sincere. I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
This idea of surrendering a major decision like this to the Attorney General, Secretary to Cabinet, is not a very good demonstration of leadership on the part of President Hakainde Hichilema. Because if he really attached a lot of importance to this matter, given the fact that the individual that died was his peer, what he could have done, putting that at the back of his mind, that the person who died was my peer, none of these, rose to that position. I'm the only one who occupied the position that he did. What the president could have done, address the nation, look into the camera, and tell the nation that I don't want this matter to drag on any further.
Right.
I don't want to stand in the way of the wishes of my predecessors, whether those wishes were in writing or not. As long as they've been expressed by the family, I respect that. Now, if the president said that categorically and briefly, looking into the camera, into the eyes of the nation, believe you me, everybody else would have simply bowed down and said the president has spoken.
He himself,
nobody else.
Right.
Do you know how comforting it is when the president makes a statement on a controversial issue? There is direction that is given to everyone in the nation, even those that are in the streets. Do you remember the time when President Hakainde Hichilema looked into the camera and addressed the nation, announcing the period of mourning?
Yes.
You see, wherever everyone was, everyone in unison said the president has spoken
and he's speaking. Let's watch. Correct.
All of us stopped what we are doing because his voice matters. But I can't understand why President Hakainde Hichilema cannot realize that what the nation is yearning for is not the voice of Kabesha, is not the voice of Kangwa, is not the voice of anybody else over this matter. The person who died was his peer. Only his voice will matter. Don't issue a press statement. No. Tell the nation that the president at such and such an hour is going to address the nation and give direction over this matter and give finality. I will tell you this. Everyone, the same way that you watch the main soccer teams playing that day, whether it will be in a bar, it will be in a restaurant, it will be where even the people that don't watch ZMBC that day, they are going to tune in and watch, because that is the only voice that matters the most. What the president has done so far, he has not provided leadership over this matter. He has surrendered this matter to individuals that no one will listen to and pay attention. Do you think it matters what Attorney General Kabesha says over this?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. You think what Wakangwa will say over this matter, it matters? It doesn't matter. What matters is what President Hakainde Hichilema will say. And the President Hakainde Hichilema needs to understand what it means that the entire country votes directly for the president.
Right.
What that means is that you have been given so much power.
Right.
From 753,000 square kilometers of this country by 20 million Zambians, the power lies in you. So the mandate that you carry is so much. Don't share that with people whose voices don't matter.
Right.
So my word to President Hakainde Hichilema is that, Mr. President, maybe you don't understand how much people want to listen to you and hear you. Do you know that even when he is saying other things, the entire nation stops what they are doing, the president is speaking, even if they know he's playing politics at a public rally.
Whatever he says,
Whatever he
goes
says,
viral.
yes, whatever he says goes viral. That is the power that he wields.
Wow.
But he doesn't seem to understand that. And finally, let me say this.
Please.
That position of president, he's so powerful that Chiluba illustrated it very well one day. Here is what he said at a press conference.
Yes.
That, sometimes you people look at my physical stature and say, oh, Chiluba is just a small guy, he cannot do anything and all that. Then he said, picture this. He is a small, physically small police female officer who is stopping vehicles. And there's a huge truck coming. And then she stands in the middle of the road and she raises her hand. And that huge truck comes to a stop, stopped by physically small individual. But do you know why that truck has stopped? The uniform. The uniform represents authority. Then he said, some people make a mistake that Chiluba is small and stuff like that. But what they don't know is that, you see, when I sign on a dotted line, something will happen to you. And for sure, he was demonstrating the power that lies in that position of president. So my word to President Hakainde Hichilema is to say, President Hakainde Hichilema, there's so much power that lies in your voice today. We may not have been listening to you when you were in the opposition. We may not have been listening to you when you were in the business sector. But in this position, your word is creative power. God has extended to presidents the creative power that God has when he said, there shall be this, there shall be this. The president of Zambia can say there's going to be a funeral according to the wishes of the family, and believe you me, the entire nation that day is going to celebrate like we have scored and won the Africa Cup as a country.
He's a king.
He's
and
king.
He has the authority.
He has the authority, and he hasn't used it. He is extending it to other people that Zambians don't listen. Let me tell you, even if you said the Attorney General is speaking, I hear he was addressing a press. How many people even paid attention to that? Nobody. What you say doesn't matter. And I need to emphasize this.
Well,
Attorney General, doesn't matter how many you speak. It doesn't matter. No one listens. But Kangwa, even if you are quiet at this point, in fact, for me, I'd even forgotten that he had been designated as the spokesperson. It's Kennedy that has even reminded me. The reason is because his voice doesn't matter. Even if it's Manalumango, it's a voice doesn't matter.
Material.
What matters is President Hakainde Hichilema speaking.
Speaker, a communication was done about 10 months ago, according to the story we are reading, that the HH is now willing to stay away from the burial procession.
I mean, today we woke up, I would call it to a rude shock, that the president is willing to stay away. Now, two things is going on in my mind here. First of all, if the president communicated that he would be willing to step away, when did he communicate? The last communication I remember about this is the president coming to the nation, looking into the camera and say, I've called off the period of national mourning.
Yes.
That's what Kelly is telling us here. The word of the president is that strong. The moment he said, I've called off national mourning,
people went to drink beer.
Even the soldiers who were singing at the they demobilized.
Correct.
Packed up the instruments.
Yeah.
And said the commander has spoken.
Wow.
There is no more national mourning.
Let's go home.
we went back to life as usual. Radio stations and TV stations stopped playing solemn music, gospel music.
They went
They
to play
back
Yomaps.
to Ndombolo and the Yomaps. That's what it is. So I don't know at what point the president spoke. The only assumption I have is the president may have made up his mind now that he's willing to stay away. But to give the weight to that assertion, let's backdate to 10 months ago. I think this is a backdated weight. If he has made a decision to stay away, he has made a decision to stay away now. Because if he had made it 10 months, we would have known.
Wow.
Mr. Hamasaka would have communicated. Mr. Kangwa would have communicated. Mr. Kavesha would have communicated. None of them. What we know, there was mediation. The president's team was being represented by Dr. H.K. Banda.
I think Bakir, is it Bakir Nuruzi? Is it Bakir? There's someone from
that was a
HK
family.
Banda.
Oh, that was a family.
Yes.
H.K. Banda from North Mid.
Yeah.
Then the family.
Joshua Banda.
Yes. Then the family were being represented by Archbishop. Who I think.
Banda.
Banda.
Yes.
Who I think the government was not comfortable with. But that was the appointed representative. So tell me, why was there these two negotiating teams if the president had already chosen that he will stay away? And my view is this. It is a good thing if the president has finally decided to stay away. The question at the back of every Zambian is, why didn't he do this 10 months ago? Why now? And if he chooses to stay away now, given what has happened, it will lend itself to so many interpretations. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
If he has chosen to stay away now, after everything that has happened over the past 2-3 days, that decision will lend itself to so many interpretations. And I can't fault anyone who is reading into this any other way, who is interpreting it the way they want. You can't fault them, because the president should have chosen to say, I will not fight over the wishes of the late. Let the family go ahead and back. Now, lo and behold, this matter has stalled. Now there's a big complication to this. The court should have been determining how to put closure to this, whether they should bury him in South Africa or they should bring him here.
Back home.
But now they will have to determine contempt. They will have to determine an autopsy and opening a body without the approval
of the
family. There are now many more complications that have come and have arisen. All of these things would have not happened if the president had said, I will stay away. So why should he stay away now? Why should he stay away now? That is the question that begs an answer. And as I've said, everything that has happened, if that choice indeed has been made now, it will lend itself to so many interpretations.
And if the post-mortem was done, what are the results? What is the outcome of that post-mortem? These are some of the questions people are asking, Comrade Mike Sichula. But as you attempt to answer that, or maybe to comment on that, there's been an issue of mistrust in between the two parties. You know, the government doesn't seem to trust the Lungu family, but also the Lungu family, to the large extent, they can't trust the Zambian government. Going by the precedents or the incident which happened at the airport last time, where a roadmap was given to members of the public, and later on at the airport, some dramatic events happened, and the body was blocked from being ferried into Zambia. Now, if at all the president now has decided to stay away from the the burial procession, should the family or should the country trust the government that should the family decide to bring the body into Zambia, indeed, President HH will stay away from that funeral? Or maybe we just say, I'm in charge now. I mean, I'm the president. You just deploy maybe soldiers and take charge.
Okay,
Let's take over.
So I think the first question on the results of the postmortem, for me, based on the statement that was issued to the nation yesterday by Mr. Kabesha, which according to Mr. Kaunda, it doesn't matter, and I truly agree with him. He clearly wants to withdraw the involvement of the Zambian government and lump everything into the South African government. So meaning the results of the postmortem are in the hands of the South African government.
Yeah.
So it is up to the Zambian government to request for those results. That can again be determined through the courts of law. Because according to what Mr. Kabesha said is that all along, even if on the 22nd he said that the government was in custody of the Lungu family, he has turned to say that to the contrary. So meaning the South African government are the ones who have the results. So for the Zambian government to have access to those results, they need to speak government to government, Zambia and the South African government, and again they need to respond to the court who authorized the postmortem to be done, because in the judgment of August, that was not anywhere. Maybe it was hidden away from the public, but we didn't hear it. Even Mr. Makebi Zulu, as the family spokesperson, did not speak to it. Then coming to the issue of trust, for me, I don't think Mr. Kabesha is being honest by saying President Hakainde Hichilema is more or less like now ready to not to be within the to preside over the funeral. I don't agree with him. First, he does not represent. He is not a presidential spokesman person. Number one, he's not a presidential spokesperson. Then number two, he has issued two conflicting statements in the space of 4 days. Let me put it that way. Right. So I cannot trust him, because the statements that he has issued to the nation, they have confused many Zambians. Then number two, like I said, he's not a presidential spokesperson, because this matter, someone may wake up one day and say, actually, the president didn't say that. Where are you going to base it? Because already on social media, commentators that are supporting the President Hakainde Hichilema, they are saying it is not correct to suggest that President Hakainde Hichilema is going to back off. We have been told on the floor of Parliament, according to the Vice President, she said if President Hakainde Hichilema backed off, it would be like committing a treasonable offense. So based on that, and based on the absence of State House speaking to this fact, and I like the fact that Mr. Kaunda is saying the president himself should speak, because if the president has not spoken, I can assure you the Lungu family will not believe that President Hakainde Hichilema has agreed to back off, because what will happen is that based on those assumptions that Mr. Kabesha has created, I wouldn't be surprised the Lungu family says, okay, fine, let's take the body to Zambia. Then the body comes into Zambia. You see on the program that President Hakainde Hichilema is appearing. Or even if he's not appearing, he's the head of state. Anything can change at the last minute. You just discover that the president is coming with this entourage. What are you going to do? The body is already in the land of Zambia, and the state security has already taken over. What will happen? So to me, I think the Zambian government, let not discuss this issue too much in the public. Let them revert into the background to speak to the family. Because what is it going to profit President Hakainde Hichilema to sit presiding over the funeral, then Mrs. Lungu decides to boycott the funeral in protest? What is it going to profit Mr. Hakainde Hichilema to say, okay, finally, I'm sitting, presiding over my predecessor, whom...
That may not matter according to the government.
Yes,
remember, the AG himself, we did mention actually that
yes,
if they want, they can come and attend the funeral.
Yes.
I mean, the burial. If they do not want, they can stay away. We will still go ahead and bury.
But look,
so maybe that may not matter to them.
Look, culturally speaking, that is not how Zambians have been raised. At a funeral, even if you have got grudges, someone is going to come say, "Ah, no, ni pamaliro, zakakamba mushe vintu voyambana." You get the point? Huh? But now imagine the family decides to boycott. President Hakainde Hichilema, the flag that is given to the widow, who is he going to give? If the family decides to boycott, then he sits by himself to say, "I'm presiding over this." It will cause again another embarrassment to Zambians and also the outside world. So this matter, my advice to President Hakainde Hichilema, President Hakainde Hichilema, for argument's sake, you can, when he was in opposition, there were hardly few times, you can number the times that President Hakainde Hichilema would refer to Mr. Lungu as President Edgar Lungu. A number of people will argue. So to me, President Lungu exhibited humbleness after he lost power, contrary to what Mr. Hakainde Hichilema exhibited to Dr. Lungu when he was in office. So this is something that the President Hakainde Hichilema, especially now, especially that he went, his meetings, he met some African leaders in Eswatini where he met for a function. He could use that function, occasion, to listen to other voices of his peers in the region. What are they saying? Maybe he can pick some wisdom to say, I think, okay, Zambians, as he arrives at Kenneth Kaunda International Airport, he parades ZNBC and says, I think, Zambians, let this matter be buried. I'm not going to come. Regardless of what PK is saying, whatever speculations people are going to speculate, even if people are going to say, now we have lost, and so on and so forth, this is not about winning and losing. This is about maintaining the integrity and the good image that we have created, as stated by Mr. Kaunda there. Whenever we go out of Zambia, the image has always been that of unity. The image has always been that of bringing warring factions together to end the conflict happening in their countries. We did it for Democratic Republic of Congo. Correct. We did it for Angola, just here in Lusaka. So why can't we bury our former president?
All right, thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your knowledge around that story. But we'll shift a little bit. We look at the life and the welfare of a journalist in Zambia ahead of the elections. As you know that we're having the elections in the next few months coming up. But sadly, one Zambian journalist in Alfonso Kasongo from Power FM was attacked by some UPND cadres as of last week or the other week. What is happening in Zambia? A Zambian journalist is safe ahead of the elections so far. Comrade Kaunda, I'll begin with you.
You know, violence is a precursor to the loss of human life. That is why when violence occurs, you need to be sufficiently serious to identify the perpetrators, bring them to book, and allow the full force of the law to take its course, to demonstrate to would-be perpetrators of violence that this too will happen to you. Right. Remember what happened to that woman, innocent woman in, is it Kalumbila?
Kalumbila.
Yes. Who was killed by that mob. That's what violence does. It doesn't matter whether it is politically motivated or it's motivated by suspicions of witchcraft. Violence is a precursor to the loss of life. Now, I did hear some unfortunate statements that were being made by some political players attempting to justify what happened, or even trying to distance themselves and from activities of that kind, and less sympathetic of the journalist. But I'll tell you this: what the flip coin of that is, would we have been with that lackluster attitude if he had died? Because that mob could have killed him. Because that's what violence does. It's a precursor to to the loss of life. So, the thoughts that were going through my mind was that, we have seen violence perpetrated against journalists. I was Mr. Zambia chairperson when I saw, face to face, what violence can do to journalists. The late Kangwa Mulengo was working for Radio Phoenix, and the late Mwanaleza for the Times of Zambia.
Yes, Eddie Mwanaleza.
Eddie Mwanaleza were severely beaten during the MMD time. They were covering a UPND rally, which was supposed to take place somewhere around where you have the mosque today. They were severely beaten, and when I saw them, their shirts were blooded, and some of the journalists, instead of allowing them to go to the hospital, were locked up in police cells. I went to the police cells and spoke to the officers in charge. At some point, I went to Kabwata police and said, but how do you put a person with a bloody shirt in this fashion in a police cell instead of taking them to a police station? Instead of taking them to a hospital. And we had a legal defense fund at that point, and I encouraged these journalists actually to sue. And when we started a legal process in a court of law, the Attorney General at that time advised the police that you need to settle this matter outside court because we are wrong. So the point I'm making is that, violence leads to the loss of human life. And if we respect human life, then we need to be serious about what happened to these journalists. And how do we become serious about this? What I would like to urge the Zambian government and the police, if they are serious about this, is that the same way that they were serious enough to identify within hours the individuals that killed that woman, is the same way that they should be serious enough to look at the footage, identify those perpetrators, arrest them, and bring them to book. Let them appear in a court of law, and let them be convicted.
They should use the same force.
They should use the same force.
Yeah.
And especially that now we are in this period which is very volatile.
Yeah.
If they do that, then they will be assuring the media that the government will be able to use the instruments of the state to protect them.
You.
It is pointless and hypocritical for government to be calling the media partners in development when you can't protect their lives.
You can't protect your partner.
You can't protect your partner. Your partner you protect because you know that the relationship is mutually reinforcing.
Correct.
So the challenge I'm giving to the Inspector General of Police is this. Tell the nation that you have arrested this person and that person and that person and that person, and they are appearing in a court of law. The second point that I would like to make is this, that and while all that is happening, that the media also makes use of I think Mr. Zambia has rolled out a legal desk where you need to seek advice for anything that has happened.
Correct.
I think they've also they also have this legal defense fund.
Correct.
Make use of it. So to Power FM, I would like to say to them, listen, take this matter
very serious.
Very, very seriously. And to organizations like Mr. Zambia and other media associations, my word to them is that take this matter seriously. If the state doesn't want to sue, because at this point in time, there's a very high possibility that we might actually even lose the life of journalists. And my last point is this, that Zambians need to understand that violence has almost been normalized in this country for many years. Do you know that there's a female Zambian journalist who was working for the Times? I don't want to mention her name. Who had her nipple literally pulled her teeth by a particada. Pulled literally. And for that reason, the family felt so bad and were so distraught that they told her that, you know what, it's not worth it. It's not worth it.
Just quit.
That's quit. That's how she walked away from journalism and decided to go into public relations and other things. So Zambians need to understand this. Don't play around with violence against journalists.
This is fire. We are playing
Journalists have died in the course of duty. We take risks. Some of our colleagues in the Middle East are dying every day to bring you stories. Zambian journalists take risks at the risk of being, torn apart by cadres to bring you stories, to inform you so that you make informed decisions. You can't afford to look at those images and just walk away. It is time that you stood up in solidarity with journalists, that you can't do this to journalists, so that you support us, especially during this time, and ensure that this doesn't happen again.
What kind of a speech, Piquet, do you think will be given in line with the safety of journalists in Zambia ahead of the World Press Freedom Day coming up soon? But also I love the fact that Comrade Kaunda has emphasized that we need to take these matters very serious. Where does it sit?
If you talk about a speech, IP, what speech will be given? If it will be coming from the media associations, it will be about the fact that media freedoms are under threat in Zambia. Excuse me. It's about the case of Kasongo, the case of Mpongwe FM. These are some of the recent incidents that point to the fact that media freedoms are under threat, and violence is about to silence the voice, the critical voice of the media. But if a speech is going to come from the government, you see, speeches is about public relations. It's about perception management. It's about managing the narrative. So they will also try to paint a picture that everything is okay. And I want to draw these two parallels in speaking to this matter. That first of all, I remember the days of my brother here, Kelly Kaunda, working for the Voice of America. I remember the days of Joe Kaunda working for the Post. I remember the days of Amos Marupenga working for the Post. I remember the days of Webster Malido working for the Post. I remember the days...
The IBA DG now.
Yes. I remember the days of Shapi Shachinda working for Times and later for Reuters news agents. I remember the days of Anthony Mkuita, ambassador, my dear brother, writing for the Bloomberg News. These guys, there's a certain crop of journalism that we knew, the days of Hicks Kazwe. When they write a story, it is to speak truth to power. Whether Chiluba was this powerful, whether Mwanawasa was this powerful, whether Michael Sata was this powerful, or Kaunda was this, they would speak to the issues. My fear today is our journalism is highly compromised. We need to begin to reflect, and that's where the problem starts from. I'll qualify this. This is where the problem starts from. The media industry in Zambia needs to reflect. Who are we? Are we public relations officers? Are we extension of PR wings of the government? Because one of the things, the tragedy of our days that has happened is that a journalist will wait for a press statement from Mr. Kavesha. That is what would be news. If you write, you go beyond and dig what has happened, then the cadres will pull you down and say you are speculating, you are lying, this is fake, you have not verified. For them, verified news is only when it comes from Hamasaka,
Godfrey
Chilavi. A journalist cannot take their own initiative to dig information and independently confirm facts and then speak as it is. I mean, we have demonstrated this. I can give examples. When no one knew that the government was printing new currency.
Correct.
We were the only media house that investigated and got the facts and boom, published the news to say there is a new currency that is coming. 2 days later, the government announced that there is a new currency. I can go on and show facts on how a media house must be ahead of the news, break the news, and everyone will be saying, oh, it's true what KBN reported. Now, the reason we are where we are today, my brother Kelly, is because our young journalists, they think only a story that has been released through a press statement from a PRO, from a ministry, is what will constitute a story. So they cannot write anything that is truth, but has no voice of government in it.
Backing.
Then they feel they'll be harassed.
Yeah.
And so what we have done, we have surrendered our authority to cadres. That if you write a story that seems to be questioning government, you are anti-government.
You are betraying
You
the
are
government.
sponsored. You are
You are
fighting
PF
government.
cadre.
You are PF.
PF
you have been
journalists.
paid. And therefore the journalists have pulled back. They are now conduits
Waiting
of PR.
for statements, written statements.
They are conduits of PR. And so when they go out and you want to write a story, you are scared of cadres now because they'll say, oh, it's IP from that critical media. Oh, it is Kasongo from that critical media.
Yeah.
We are contributing. And we have this proliferation of media houses, but there's no quality.
Correct.
By virtue of the many TV stations, by virtue of the many radio stations, if each one of us were investigative in nature and holding government accountable, this government would have been sitting up and said, we don't want this to go to the media. We don't want, but they know they've managed the media, and the media must be so docile, must wait for the Minister of Information to issue a statement, and that's what becomes news. I am not of that school. I am of the school of Kelly's Kaunda, who will go and say, there is this, Mr. Honorable Minister. How are you going to manage
Can you
this?
react to
Can you
this?
react
Yeah.
to this? Then they will rush quickly and say, before Kelly tells the Voice of America, let's deal with this and fix it. Today, we have subjected ourselves to this situation where if I write this story, I'll be attacked. If I write such a story, I will not be put on a trip with the president or with the minister. So news
I will not be given transport refund
refund.
after
Not
the press
be a
briefing.
press attaché.
I see in all these blogs of journalists, there are no news stories discussed.
No.
They would rather discuss what's happening at the weekend, what they're drinking, things like that.
No news whatsoever.
No news.
Yeah.
So while it is, I sympathize with where we are. We, the people in the media today, must reflect on ourselves and who we are. Are we really the fourth estate? Do we want to continue to hold those who are in power accountable, or we want to be conduits of perception,
Right.
PR, and then we call ourselves journalists? That's where the difference is.
Interesting, quite detailed indeed. Mike Sichula, as you summarize on this story, Comrade Kasongo from Power FM, of course, he went to cover a UPND, function.
Yeah.
So why should you been invited to go and cover, an event? When you come to my event again later on, my children decides to attack you,
Yeah.
and that's what happened.
So when it happened, I got in touch with Kasongo, and luckily he picked up the call and he narrated to me to say at that event in Linda compound, when the UPND officials were addressing from their podium, there was another faction of the same UPND guys, another faction. So they were not listening to the event. They went behind the stage and started throwing stones on the podium. So when those people at the UPN, some of the officials at the UPND at the podium pursued these who were throwing stones, they managed to apprehend one or two. So it was that person, they beat that person, and they were trying, I don't know where they were trying to take this person. So it was at that point, Mr. Kasongo used his journalistic skills to capture that event, to say, this person is the one who was throwing stones at a public gathering. So he was capturing. Now, when those cadres saw him, that was the only offense he committed.
Wow.
To capture them apprehending their fellow cadre who was throwing stones at a public event. That was the only offense Mr. Kasongo committed. To film the apprehension of a cadre who could have injured people, because there was a lady at the same event who complained of being stoned from the back. Now imagine if that stone landed on front of her face. It could have been a different story altogether. So how can a journalist who is filming an incident be a victim. Then
Your own event, actually.
your own event. Then the sad part, like Mr. Kaunda spoke to, and for me, I was very displeased. I wrote it on my media page because there's a group of they call themselves Lusaka Press Club,
Yes.
and one of their leaders, I don't know his name, he was actually saying Kasongo staged that. Can you imagine? To say Kasongo staged his own beating. This is a person who claims to be a leader of journalists in Lusaka, who must be in the forefront to ensure that this culprit should not be allowed to go out of police. Because according to Mr. Chiravi, they have arrested one.
Yes.
Who is actually a non-UPND cadre, and he holds a position in Linda compound, and there's a ward in Linda compound. So you can clearly see, again, there's division amongst journalists in this country.
Right.
Because the system has created a pool where if you kind of like report whatever the government of the day does, they are going to recognize you by giving you a job in the foreign service. I'm not saying it is bad to earn a job in a foreign service, but it shouldn't be earned on backbiting your friends. Say, no, this one did this. This one reports critically. No, don't get him. Get this one. No. We are reducing the noble profession of journalism. There was an event sometime, I think, during the reign of the PF administration, because to demonstrate that I've also been a victim of violent cadreism. There used to be a time when there was should be the constitutional reforms.
Right.
There was a church gathering at Bigoka in Matelo. We sat, the likes of civil society organizations, Mr. Chipenzi was there, Guest Miranda was there, Elderman Bishop John Mamba was there, inside the church at Bigoka. Guess what happened? You know, you are listening to the podium, then just someone walks by the door with those pick sticks and all other offensive, weapons, I may call them that way. Then somebody just stood by the door and said, hey, you there? What are you doing?
The impunity.
Yes. Trying to disrupt a noble gathering in a church.
This country.
This was the PF cadres. PF cadres. And what happened thereafter, you could not imagine. The way everybody scampered, we tried to go out, we went out from that, because these people, they stood on the entrance and there was no any other entrance. Yeah. So we had to make way out of that church. And when we made it out of that church, what happened thereafter on those people that were arrested, were captured by the cadres? I recall Gerard Singo of ZNBC, he was beaten. I was trying to capture a picture of how Mr. Dr. Bishop John Mamba was beaten. Someone who is like your grandfather to be beaten on the ground, you can literally see that this is lawlessness. So this is the kind of violence that we are coming from, and it is the kind of violence that we are seeing against journalists under the UPND administration. You spoke about what should be in the speech. My hope is that...
As you conclude now.
My hope is that the people that are crafting the speech for President Hakainde Hichilema, they should not create a perception that there is media freedom in this country.
Right.
They should also not create a perception that there are no media institutions that have closed under the UPND administration. Because I am a victim of Spring TV. It was closed under the UPND administration. Right. There were media institutions that were closed during the PF administration. So I'm hoping that even as they want to portray a nice picture of Zambia during World Press Freedom Day, they should not mislead the president. Right. Because the attacks that were inflicted on Alfonso Kasongo, news editor at Power FM, you cannot say there's media freedom in Zambia. The attacks that were pushed on journalists at Mpongwe FM, you cannot bury them and say these are isolated cases, let's push them under the carpet. That is an indication that journalists are not safe in terms of if you are going to do critical journalism in this country. IP, I think, sorry to take into your time. You have been attacked online. People call you as a PF journalist. Those are attacks.
Correct.
Those are attacks because you cannot say someone who thinks different from a public media, then he becomes a PF journalist or he becomes a disgruntled journalist or a paid-up journalist. Those cyber attacks that we face online can one day become physical if they meet you. We don't know what these journalist people can do if they meet you in person. Because if they can insult you, if they can insult me on social media as a journalist, what about if they meet me in person? We don't know what can happen.
Maybe we should not be covering, the internal or family fights when they begin to fight, unless if it was the PF fighting with the UPND.
No, but the job of a journalist is to report news. CEO here is talking about critical thinking as a journalist.
Correct.
I'll give you one scenario that happened when I was at 5FM radio. You recall, and it is actually during this month where we are going to celebrate the foreign heroes, our national team players who died over the coast of Libreville in Gabon. There was a time Mr. Kambwiri was sports minister, and he came on national television. He said what we call now the National Heroes Stadium, he said it was going to be disaster, whatever.
Gabon disaster. And the entire nation was up in arms. No, you can't call it that. It was quite a long name.
Yes, you got the point. So, when I went to 5FM, I sat. I'm talking about now critical thinking as a journalist.
Yes.
Who do I quote for this story?
Right.
Because everybody was fearing, the minister has spoken. It was quiet. And I picked up one source. Right. And the rest is history. One source that I picked, and he commented, 12 hours, the news was all over. The following day, the name was changed.
Yeah.
So this is why I'm saying critical thinking as a journalist is what we have been called for, and when we are trained to think critically, some of these things that we are seeing, even today, the issues of Mr. Kavesha saying A, B, C, D,
they cannot be there,
but I cannot blame my friends at ZNBC because they are told just go and cover, don't ask.
Or don't ask any question.
Don't ask any question, just cover, bring the material, then we publish it to the nation.
So you can't question hold on, AG. Last time you mentioned to us
that
the motor remains were already handed over to the government.
As a matter of fact, you are right. That statement he went to he called ZNBC to his office?
Yes.
Whoever was filming just filmed.
Yes.
Without asking. Because the first thing that came to my mind when I saw that, I said, no, this is the same man who said the board has been formally transferred. He's now saying at no point.
Why was not asked?
If I'm the one who was filming that, I'll say, can you explain? What does transfer mean? And what does at no point mean?
So like
we have to go. Yes.
My other brother like Kelly, I think Kelly's and as well as CEO here. That is what our viewers may not know.
Right.
The way KBN would do their stories will be different from the way Zambia Daily Mail, Zanis, ZNBC, because I don't think if it is you, IP, who was interviewing or filming the AG, you are going to leave him just like that.
In fact, he will not even invite me to go and cover that because I asked questions. Thank you so much, gentlemen. We have to go. Comrade Kaunda, thank you so much for coming through. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Pike, thank you so much for coming through as well.
Thank you, IP. The time is very short.
Very short, actually.
Yeah, very short.
Mike, we appreciate you as well.
Thank you very much, IP, and thank you very much to our dear viewers. And I think we need to put this nation into the hands of God. What is happening is not good for a nation that we call